Here with David Martin from Terra Group. You guys have 5 million in square feet throughout Miami, commercial and residential, $8 billion in value. Great to have you here, David.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, do you just want to start off? Tell us about how you started, your story.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Miami my whole life, and when I graduated, I started the company in a little executive suite in 2001. And then for the last 23 years, we've been, having a strategy to kind of redevelop our city. And so as Miami's grown, I think our firm has grown as well. And so we started out kind of primarily doing a lot of residential, and today we're really in every asset class, and from industrial to industrial outdoor storage to hospitality, office, retail, et cetera. So we have kind of a very diversified portfolio, but all focused on South Florida, so Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County.
Awesome. So why Florida? You grew up here. What's Florida's residential buildings to you? Why is it personal for you? Why do you care so much, all your energy into Miami?
No, I think I think our we're kind of a young city, and we've kind of grown up from being we went from a young city to an international city before we became a national city. So Miami has, and South Florida has so many different cultures, and how those cultures interact and interface is something that's very interesting to me. When I was in college, I kind of opened up a coffee shop, and I remember driving by the coffee shop when it was packed, and it was like very exhilarating and being able to impact people in a positive way. And so we started just working with different designers and advisors to really come up with, try to create environments that enhance people's lives. And so that's been a big kind of mantra for me. And kind of, growing up in Miami and having my family here. I have 2 kids. I have a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter, Colette and David. And so just being able to kind of help our society in a way and kind of, create buildings and environments that not only are for our customers, but also kind of are something beautiful and impactful to kind of the surrounding neighborhoods. So, our firm's really big on kind of having neighborhood strategies, and so neighborhoods like Miami Beach, where we're sitting here now, or Coconut Grove, these are neighborhoods that we're doing multiple projects in, and so, it's some way community building, and it's really exciting when you could not just do one project in one far out region or another city, but really be building where your children can kind of go to the construction sites with you, and it's just been an amazing time and an amazing couple decades in Miami, and this growth is just something that we embrace, and we hope to continue doing great things for the city.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love how you grew up here in Miami. You want to grow the community and everything. That's part of your reasons for your motivation and everything. So that's great. So let's talk about like 5 Park. How is that going? What's your feelings about that? Your new developments. Tell us about some of those.
Sure. So 5 Park was an interesting project. The property was owned by a partner of mine for 14 years, and it wasn't developed. It was an old hospital that kind of got shut down, and it was somewhat of an eyesore for the community, just really a surface parking lot. So kind of the thesis was, let's ask the community to say, hey, if we could deliver this park and bridge, will you give us more height? And so we ended up getting a unanimous support from the commission. We had a huge amount of community outreach and meetings in order to kind of educate people on the project. We try to design it to kind of minimize view blockage, but also trying to enhance kind of the overall property. We have 7 acres here, and we're only built a building on around 2 of those acres. So the other 5 acres, I think, are just public amenities for the neighborhood. And I think that was something that was really embraced. The park actually not only is beautiful, it was designed by Arquitectonica Geo, as well as advisory with West State, who does a lot of work in Miami Beach. But under the park, it is kind of interesting because it's somewhat of probably the most resilient park that's ever been built in Florida, because we have around 14 wells that are basically cleaning all the water for the entire South Beach Basin prior to going into the bay. I was the vice chair of the Biscayne Bay Task Force, and one of the big things in our city is, how do we protect the environment, and the bay is a big part of that, and having seagrass is important to having great, fish and just coral and
So
and
bring
just for
some
the healthy.
the marine life, keep it healthy, keep it going.
Exactly.
All of that.
So the park has a lot of different interesting features that, in my opinion, are somewhat of a model for future parks and how we need to be building our parks in our community. And then the bridge was something unique also because Miami Beach has a loop in a way where you have a beach walk and a bay walk, but Fifth Street, which is really MacArthur Causeway. They're basically two arteries that get into Miami Beach, the Juliet Tuttle and the MacArthur Causeway. MacArthur Causeway is the one most known. It's kind of where, when you're driving down, you see all the cruise ships and downtown and everything. But when you arrive, it basically disconnects the Baywalk and there was no connectivity. So working with the city and the Florida Department of Transportation, we were able to get rights to be able to build a bridge for the city, and that was great. And so we commissioned an artist, an amazing artist called Danielle Buren from France and Europe, and really one of the most significant leaders of modern art in Europe, and really done some amazing work in different museums and outdoor installations. And so basically we should be breaking ground on that park by the end of the year, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's kind of change the entrance into Miami Beach. So I think Five Park, not only is it an amazing residential building with amazing amenities and food and beverage kind of experiences within the building for our residents, but it's also delivering a better neighborhood for the neighbors and the residents that live in Miami Beach. And so for us, that was kind of a very important kind of component of every project we do is, we try to hack capitalism to solve kind of society's issues and kind of prove this thesis that development can be better, can improve a neighborhood rather than just create incremental traffic or anything like that.
Absolutely. It sounds like when you're living here in Miami, it kind of helps you to see where Miami needs, like you needed that bridge or the park, so you're building that. Does like growing up here help you like decide what kind of projects you want to do too?
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, the fact that we have roots here and we grow up here, there's some sort of accountability that we have to the community. And so, for me, it's exciting that, we're able to be part of, some of the major projects. Like we're working on the Convention Center Hotel, which is the headquarter hotel for Miami Beach. It's going to be a Grand Hyatt, and we're excited about those types of projects. But really, we have a responsibility to really do good development. Here we could have built around 600 units. We ended up building around 230 units, right? So when we look at every neighborhood and every city we're building in, I think it's really a blessing and an honor to be doing what we do. And the way we look at it is, a lot of people approach development as I have a right to develop, or it's a privilege to develop. And the more we lean on the privilege side and treat people with respect and dignity that currently live in these neighborhoods, I think the more they really want to embrace what we're doing, and I think that's a kind of a good formula for us.
Absolutely. Getting the people involved, having them have a say in it. How do you get the community involved? How do you hear their feedback or their wants, and how do you incorporate that?
It's exhaustive meetings. We host a lot of community meetings. Sometimes we host them on our properties, or we go to city commission hearings and do that engagement, or we go to their board meetings, right? Condo association boards, neighborhood associations. City of Miami Beach is a very active community, and they have an opinion and say on what they want the future of the city is. And so for us, it's about how do we align everybody's interests. You have government, you have resident, you have business. And all those three parties need to be communicating and working together in order to make transformative change and improvements to the neighborhoods.
Yeah, so I think that goes into one of my next questions is like, how is it to be a leader of so many people and be someone who's in control of so many great aspects? Like, do you have any tips, advice, or what do you do? What's your leadership style?
We have an amazing group of people. We have almost 100 people in our shop at Terra, and we have principles and values, right? Values that are connected to integrity, connected to generosity, ingenuity, artistry. These are principles that we build and frame, right? And I think every neighborhood, whether it's Doral or Hialeah all the neighborhoods that we're building in. And there's so many different neighborhoods to South Florida. A lot of people don't realize it's just not Miami. That all these neighborhoods have different voids, right? They have different requirements. Some may have stormwater management issues. Some, may need more green space. Some may have education and underserved education. And so, we try to really assess and do an assessment of what those neighborhoods' needs are and see how we could solve and create neighborhoods that, that are mixed income. One of the big stories of Miami Beach and why historic preservation is so important, not only to remember the history and legacy of the buildings and memories of our city and how and to learn from that and some of the beauty of the historic preservation, but we also kind of look at historic preservation as a way of maintaining and preserving and conserving the existing, affordable housing requirements and needs to preserve the existing community here. So it's somewhat of a gentrification protection, which I think is kind of what we believe, and I think other cities and other neighborhoods kind of may not want that mixed income vibe, but I think it's what makes society best is when the upper income and the lower income can coexist and go to the same parks and shop and experience each other, because I think there's a lot of gains that people can get from being able to experience different cultures, different income levels. And so for us, it's a tough job, but trying to plan kind of the future of our city. It's important, but I have an amazing group of people that are just humble, competitive, have a lot of integrity, and work very hard. And it just requires, you have to really be aware of when you're in the development and construction game of all the different parameters around and constraints you have in order to try to mitigate and anticipate a lot of the challenges that you see that you've experienced in the past or that may pop up in the future. So, being aware and available to tackle those challenges is as important as just identifying them, but then not,
but
addressing
the problems come after that, and then you have to have the team to be able to fix them constantly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like once you get going, then that's really when it starts, right?
Yeah, but we try to plan our projects, with discipline and a lot of parameters that I think that we believe in, right? And we've seen this work, so there's a lot of confidence we have in what we think is right or wrong, and I think we just have to adapt to things, right? We adapt to environmental considerations, we adapt to the economic situation, interest rates, et cetera. So, as you adapt and evolve, you just want an organization that's willing to continue to adapt with you, and I think our organization, from 2001 to today has been evolving quite a lot.
Absolutely, yeah, never-ending learning cycle for entrepreneurs.
100%.
Yeah, so you talked about partnerships and having people that work with you. You have a lot of exciting partnerships with your buildings for food and beverage. Do you want to talk about those and any exciting
Sure.
partnerships?
So whether it's landowners that want to contribute the land to develop with us, we have capital partners, and I've been in partnerships my entire life, and partnerships are important, and how you treat a partner and how you think, of your partner is one of the best ways to be a good partner, is to kind of always try to understand the other person's perspective. But today people want a certain lifestyle, and so we have, partners like the Cipriani family, and we have partners like the Major Food Group. We have partners like Schwartz, Michael Schwartz, and others that chef-driven concept chefs that we work with in order to kind of develop an amazing kind of experience. We see people, shopping, working, storing in their homes, right? And so the more people are spending more time in their homes, the more important it is to provide services within these buildings in order to have a kind of a unique experience than maybe some of the more older or traditional buildings. And so we view that as somewhat of a competitive advantage when we bring in partners like that can help elevate the experience in the building.
Absolutely, and you partnered with Mr. C?
Yes.
Is that what it is? Yeah, and Mitchell Schwartz?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Michael Schwartz.
Michael Schwartz.
Yeah.
How did you go about identifying them? And
It was interesting that the Cipriani's that they have a strong food and beverage platform, but they also have this hospitality brand, Mr. C, and they were building a Mr. C hotel in Coconut Grove, and so we just built a residential project with them, and then we basically created a market cafe concept that will be opening hopefully first quarter next year to 24, and so I think those individuals kind of help us think more about a customer. What we as developers are always looking for is if I could stick someone, we built a project, for instance, called Park Grove and another one called the Grand Bay in Coconut Grove, and the thesis there was we felt empty nesters were going to move from their homes into buildings, and so traditionally, I would say 20 years ago, people would have pride in how big their home was or how big their lot was, right? And what we found was that a lot of these families, kind of an empty nesters, were somewhat living in 2 bedrooms or 2 rooms in the house, and they had 10 vacant bedrooms or whatever. And so I wish we could learn more. And what we tried to do is learn and try to listen to what people want and need. And people in the food and beverage business really kind of have to deal with clientele every day consistently and kind of be true to and disciplined and accountable to their customers in order for them to come back. So their perspective and reality on how to improve somebody's life in a residential experience was something that I think was proven very valuable to us, and why I think we've attracted some of the amazing families that have ended up purchasing from us.
Understood. That's fantastic. Yeah, because the customer service for restaurants is off the charts. Like the need to every day work with you, so you guys find that common ground and really helping people out and stuff like that. So that's awesome. So the underline in Brickell, you're going to be a part of that.
Yeah, so the underline, actually, the first phase was in Brickell. It's a 10-mile connector, right? So transportation in South Florida is not anywhere close to what some of the other big cities are, and so part of the reason why is just how Miami grew up and the era and decades that it did, that development did occur, and so the Metro Rail was one of the big investments in the 80s and 90s that the county initiated in order to have a above ground kind of rail kind of commuter kind of transportation grid, and so what happens is, and we want people living closer to transportation. Obviously, transportation cost is as important as housing costs. Excuse me. And so what we saw, and I think the leader of the underline, our executive director, Meg Daly, was riding bike along under the Metro Rail and got hit by a car, and so that kind of spurred an interest and an urge for her to, excuse me, that really made her kind of want to create this green infrastructure kind of development that's kind of going to be enhancing and is actually enhancing kind of the urban environment and maybe some of the suburban environments of South Florida. And so this underline, I think, is we had a groundbreaking, I think it was around 2 weeks ago for our last phase. Thanks so much. So the underline is an example of a public amenity that I think will attract more and more people to want to live close to transit. Transit is somewhat noisy. It's and it's something that people in Miami, we're not accustomed to wanting to live next to transit, and we just completed a project called Grove Central at the Coconut Grove Metro Rail Station, and we built around 400 apartments. We have around 170,000 square feet of retail with Target and Sprouts and a bunch of great tenants, and that project is transit-oriented development. The problem is, when you think of transit-oriented development, it's kind of we shouldn't be just thinking of that project and that development. We should be building transit-oriented communities, right? So how do we connect kind of the urban fabric around the metro stations so that people feel like they're comfortable going and using transit. And so that's a big thing that I think our county and cities are focused on in order to try to attract more density and more, workforce housing closer to transit in order to really offer opportunities so more and more people can have a place, attainable kind of, their budgets aren't being worn out because of the housing costs and transportation costs. So that's a big thesis and theme that the counties have and something we wanted to kind of be part of. And so what the underline does is it makes you want to live close to transit. And so I felt that what Meg Daly was doing was something I wanted to be part of. And so, I've been helping her for several years and guiding on the planning side and kind of trying to help on the fundraising and funding of the operations and maintenance of the underline, as well as kind of some of the capital improvements and capital costs associated with it.
Yeah, I think that's a great project for Miami, because I think when you think about Miami, you think kind of like driving and you need to have a car. Like everyone who grew up here needs to drive. So really connecting all Miami through transit and getting people used to transit would be amazing.
Agreed.
Really, really amazing. So that's awesome, David. Would you be interested to look at other cities? Do you think what your team does is like?
So we're working on a few projects in West Palm Beach. We're working on several projects in Broward County and Dade County. So we have an urban kind of strategy and a suburban strategy. And so, what's funny about South Florida is there's so many different cities, right? And part of that has to do with the incorporations. Every kind of neighborhood wants to have their own police and wants the mayors and elected officials to answer to them, right? So those incorporations created, I think, over 30 cities within just Miami-Dade County. So we do work in probably, I would say, maybe over 20 different municipalities. But outside of South Florida, we've been presented a lot of opportunities in New York, Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, or even Orlando and Tampa. And our firm's focus, not on the investment side, because we do invest outside of South Florida, but on the development and construction side, it's we've had an immense focus because it's so localized, and we feel that the decisions we make want to be informed, and a lot of times when you're going into some of these new markets, you really kind of those hidden assets or hidden liabilities aren't so exposed and so natural to you. So we just have so much great work that we're doing here and a great pipeline. And so for us, it's a neighborhood and it's a region that we just wanted to be, experts at. And I think that that's why we continue to do more and more here. And there's really no need to go anywhere else.
It's been a great interview so far. So you want to focus on Miami, hammer down Miami. You're focused here. You've been living here for quite your whole life. So your focus is here on Miami, and that makes a lot of sense. So what do you say to people? Is it time to buy in Miami now? How is the market looking?
It's always, yeah, I think it depends on the asset class, right? In the residential space, what we find is we have a lot of scarcity. So we see listings, volumes going down and down, right? And so, I think, and we're not being able to produce enough supply in order to deal with that demand. So, my view is, construction costs have continued to rise, and I think more and more, I think it's really, Miami's kind of probably in its second inning, really, as it relates to the growth of the city and what the potential is for the city. So, I'm a big believer in it long term, and I had mentors of mine that, would always tell me, David, when you think of real estate, you got to think 20 years. Yeah. And so for me, we're extremely long Miami, and I think I would recommend that everybody that has that ability to have a long-term strategy with our city to be part of it. And I think one thing that's unique about Miami amongst other cities in South Florida in general is how open we are to foreigners, how people can come here and just make themselves feel that it's their home and place, and I think that's part of one of the charming qualities about our city.
Absolutely, yeah. You're into like the art and culture scene in Miami as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything like you want to tell people about the scene here in Miami that they should know about if they ever
No, I think we have people from all over the country coming here with an entertainment concepts. I had a meeting today with a amazing food and beverage operator from Detroit, right? So we have people from Chicago, from Boston, from New York, and just all over the country. Everybody wants to open and do things in our city and be part of this. Of this community, and I think it's really exciting, and I think it's probably going to be offering kind of a place that I don't think there's any other place in the world that could have the commerce and at the same time the lifestyle tourism and experiences that are created here. I think that industry and entertainment is something so unique and why people kind of are so excited about the future of the city.
Amazing, amazing. And we'll just end off on Damian Lillard to the Bucks.
Ah,
that was tough.
hard.
I mean, that's not a good conversation to have.
No, it's not.
Does he force his trade self to the Heat?
I doubt it. I don't know the details, but I know we haven't I've been a fan of the Heat my entire life. Really grew up with them, and I think I'm amazed at what Pat Riley and Eric Worth and everyone's doing at the Heat. But I'm sure our team is going to be disciplined and strives to get back into the finals.
Awesome. And you're going to have a good night at the Messi game tonight?
Yeah.
Inter Miami?
Yeah, so Inter Miami is going to be Inter Miami is an amazing kind of football soccer experience, and we're really excited about what the Moss family is doing for Miami Freedom Park and what soccer is going to do kind of culturally for our community and for the country, and we're just really excited about it.
That's awesome, David. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.
Great.
David Martin, cover star for Resident.